With the NBA trade deadline just over a week away, the clock, it is ticking down for any potential deal to come together here. So let's bring in the aforementioned Shams. You reported this news. How are teams reacting now that they know that Fox could be available here?
Malika, the Kings have received dozens of phone calls and offers in the last 30 hours since I reported this. But here's the most important thing to know. I'm told the San Antonio Spurs, according to league sources, are De'Aaron Fox's targeted preferred destination. And San Antonio is among the interested teams in Fox. This is someone that has a massive market right now. He's jumped to the top of the trade landscape ahead of the February 6th NBA trade deadline. He's in the prime of his career. He's a max contract player. These types of deals don't happen overnight though. So the Kings are going to have to balance potentially finding the best offer for him right now when he has a year and a half left before his deal expires, or the inevitability of a trade in the offseason. And if you're an interested team like the Spurs are, and De'Aaron Fox might also have that same interest in you, here is your chance to potentially get a game changer. 8
days away from the NBA trade deadline. This is your busy season, Shams. We'll let you get back to work. We appreciate you stopping by here on NBA Countdown. Thank you so very much. So De'Aaron Fox has been one of the best late game players in the league over the last few seasons. He's ranked in the top 3 in made field goal percentage in the time over the last 3 years. If you just look at clutch time here, that includes this season where he is tied for first with Jason Tatum. So really it was only a matter of time before a player said, hey, you know what? I want to go to San Antonio. I want to play with Victor Wembanyama. But Richard, is that the best place for De'Aaron Fox?
I think it's a very, very good place. I still think that even when you add De'Aaron Fox, to me, I think Wemby still might, he can be a top 10, 15 player in the next, season or two. And then that really gets De'Aaron Fox right to the age of 30. That's why I'm a little nervous about, again, giving up a player like Castle, who's actually on the exact same age timeline, in my opinion, as Wemby. Are the San Antonio Spurs better? 100%. Is that a good place? Will they be? But that's not going to move to the needle.
Well, let's say they do it without Castle. If they can do it without Castle, would you do it?
Oh, heck yeah. Okay. Yeah, knock yourself out.
Perk?
Look, wherever De'Aaron Fox goes, it's going to be a serious upgrade, okay? He's an all-NBA caliber player. All right, he's one of the most clutch players that we've seen over the last couple of seasons. Here's the thing. We're going to let Sacramento Kings off the hook? What's going on over there? A disaster. That's what's happening in Sacramento. You gave up, you traded Tyrese Halliburton. Okay, you drafted him in the lottery, so you picked a side. And that was De'Aaron Fox. Now, all of a sudden, a guy that could possibly be the face of your franchise for the, probably next 6 or 7 years, he's ready to leave. You just fired Mike Brown, won the...
Brought in DeMar.
You brought in DeMar because you wanted to win now. You fired Mike Brown. Doug Christie is 11-4, I believe.
Not too bad.
And your franchise guy won out? De'Aaron Fox is an upgrade anywhere he goes. But Sacramento, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's good to... let me say Sacramento.
We are on air, Richard.
Sacramento is Sacramentoing.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Sacramento.
There we go. I know how to explain.
Can you explain for someone who might not know, what does that mean?
That means that they had a 16 or 17-year stretch where they didn't make the postseason. They brought in Mike Brown, who was a coach of the year, and then 2 seasons later, he's gone, and now everyone's jumping ship. And so now it looks like Sacramento is Sacramentoing.
You guys know I have another life, right, covering the WNBA, played in the WNBA, and this is giving me, the last week of the LA Sparks and the Seattle Storm, the importance of that number 2 pick, or do you bring in Kelsey Plum? Do you bring in an all-star to try to make a push for the playoffs, or do you get rid of that pick, and now, that pick is different because that meant if you kept it, you're developing around a young core, right? Similar situation, obviously a different league. I do think if I'm De'Aaron Fox and I'm looking at my next 12 years, he's someone that plays explosive, he plays fast. Pairing up with Victor Wembanyama is a dream. He just fits. He fits, especially with them trying to bring a little bit more experience around him. But most importantly, it shows that stars around the league are paying attention to San Antonio, and stars around the league want to play with Victor Wembanyama.
And guess what? Agents like Rich Paul want their clients to play with Victor Wembanyama.
The Knicks, they are winning at a clip they haven't reached since Richard Jefferson was in high high school.
1960.
Yeah, not
55?
hair then either. And that success has led both Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns to getting all-star starting nods, the first Knicks duo to have that honor in 50 years. It's been even longer since a player has ranked in the top 3 for points, rebounds, and assists. No surprise, those stats were enough to make the 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic the leading vote getter in the West. That means we have a battle of the best bigs in the world's most famous arena in the first game of our doubleheader. But All-Stars, they're also in action in our nightcap. The West's starting backcourt will square off. SGA and the Thunder visit Steph and the Dubs, the league's only unanimous MVP versus this year's MVP favorite. We're counting it down on ESPN. And my All-Stars, they are here in studio. Kendrick, Perkins, Richard Jefferson, Chiney Ogwumike. I'm Malika Andrews. All-Stars in here, All-Stars on the court. But the question is, Perk, who is the best player on our airways tonight?
The best player is Jokic.
The best player is Nikola Jokic.
Yes.
Chiney, Richard, best player Nikola Jokic?
Oh, he's the best player in the world.
I believe so, yeah.
Best player in the world. So that must mean that you all are going to vote for him for MVP, right?
No.
No, this is a setup, ladies and gentlemen. This is a setup.
It was a setup.
I don't see
It was a very classy setup.
I don't see where I went wrong here. Explain to me. Best player in the world, not the MVP.
Well, we've seen
in
it
your
a
mind.
bunch of times in history where the best player in the world doesn't win the MVP. Jokic has been, in my opinion, the best player in the world consistently for the last 5 years. He's actually reaching a place that not many great players have ever reached, where they're one of the top 3-4 players for a 5-6 year stretch. But this year's MVP is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. In my opinion, when you look at his ability to lead this team, they've had a ton of injuries. Don't forget, one of Jokic's first MVPs was because he was leading a team that dealt with a lot of injuries to a postseason. Shai is doing an outstanding job. He's leading the league in scoring. They have the #1 record in the Western Conference. And number 1 record in the league?
In the league. In the league.
Let's add that to his
now.
resume. And in history, when you look at how many players have led the league in scoring and how many players had the best record in the league, they win the MVP. Look at this. When you win, who won the MVP in scoring title and team had the best record? Look at that. James Harden was the most recent in 17-18. Steph Curry when he had his unanimous MVP. But only 4 times in history has a player had the #1 record and led the league in scoring. And one of those was Michael Jordan, and it was because of voter fatigue, and they gave it to Karl Malone. So, in my opinion, when you look at what he is doing and leading the best team in this league, I'm sorry, that's what it is.
So is this voter fatigue, or is
No,
this
it's not
something-
voting. Look. Jokic is the best player in the world. We get that. He's not the most valuable. It is SGA to his team, to what he's done. And to add to what Richard was saying, he doubled down on it. Because not only did he average 30 last year, and they had the #1 seed in the Western Conference, well, he's averaging 30 plus this year again, and he got the #1 seed not only just in the West, but in the entire league. It matters. Like, we can't throw it out the window that, all of a sudden record doesn't matter. It does. And that's not no shade to Jokic. Jokic he's knocking at the door of being a top 5 center of all time in my eyes. He's knocking at the door, if not already in the conversation. But the MVP is SGA.
Look, it all depends on how you weigh team success. And I think right now, if you look at the records, OKC is 37-8. The Denver Nuggets are 28-18. So right now, that is like, if that gap closes, if that gap closes, then maybe Jokic has more of a case. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate. The only time we've seen someone average a triple-double, Oscar Robertson and then also Russell Westbrook, who did it 4 times. And the first year he did it, he won MVP. 30 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. He's top 3 in points and rebounds and assists. What we're watching from Nikola Jokic, like you said, he's been the best player the past 3 or 4 years. He's literally won the award 3 out of the last 4 years.
Yes.
And I don't think it's voter fatigue. Again, I think it is narrative in some ways. And I think the narrative here is you are without your #2 player. How are you going to handle that? Most teams would struggle. Instead, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has found ways to lead them to #1 over the Cavs, over the Celtics, right now in the standings. So I think it depends on how you weigh team success. And with that 10-game difference in the loss column, that's why it makes sense for SGA.
So We're talking about teams with 37 wins, which means we still got a couple of games to go here.
Sure.
So we're having our midway assessment of this. There's still
leading. This is not who is the
We're not
MVP.
voting just yet.
We're talking about currently right now with a 10-game lead and those numbers. He's in Michael Jordan category. That's what he is.
He definitely is in the Jordan in the category. But then on the flip side of things, who has the #1 defense in the NBA?
The Thunder.
And if you ever watch SGA play defense, he's no slouch on that end either.
True.
He's the leader of this team on both ends of the floor. That's what MVPs do.
Jokic, in my opinion, is having an historic NBA season. He's having one of the greatest seasons.
Honestly, that's an understatement. He's having a career year after winning 3 MVPs.
But again, it's not who's the best player in the world.
It's a team.
It's a team sport. That's why when you win the MVP, you give your teammates gifts.
I will say it.
You do. It's true.
You do.
Hey, Richard, you're the MVP here. What's my gift?
I ain't getting y'all.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Think I'm gonna try to wear I pull up long range. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA, I'm a